When a woman comes back after hurting you, it can be a bewildering experience. The emotions tied to such a return can be confusing, mixing relief with apprehension. You may find yourself wondering why someone who caused you pain would choose to re-enter your life. Often the reasons behind a woman's decision to come back are multifaceted. It could stem from her own feelings of regret, a realization of the value of the relationship, or perhaps the need for closure and understanding the dynamic between you two could have been significant enough for her to reflect on her actions, leading her to seek forgiveness or attempt to rebuild what was lost. Moreover, sometimes a woman returns because she has grown or changed in some way that allows her to approach the relationship differently. After the initial hurt, she may have had the time to reflect on her mistakes and realize that the bond you shared is worth revisiting. Her comeback could also signify that she values the connection and is willing to take responsibility for the past, hoping to repair the damage done regardless of the reason. It's essential to approach such a situation with careful consideration, balancing your own feelings with the potential for healing and growth. The psychology of validation maintain access to the past. They assume that the emotional connection will always be there, that the man they left behind will always be an option. But when they begin to sense that this is no longer the case, that he is no longer emotionally invested, that he has truly moved forward, panic sets in. This is when the return is not just about power, but about genuine fear, because in that moment she realizes she miscalculated. She thought she could come back at any time, but now the man she left is no longer of available. Women do not come back because they miss you. They come back because they miss the security of knowing you were always there the moment you remove that security. The game changes, and this is where self-mastery becomes essential. If you allow your emotions to be dictated by external validation, if you seek closure from the person who caused the pain, you will always be vulnerable to this cycle. But if you understand this psychological pattern and remain grounded in your own value, you become the one who dictates the terms. The answer to why women come back after hurting you is not about them. It is about you, the way you handle yourself, the way you move forward, the way you rise above the need for external validation determines everything. When you truly understand this, you no longer wait for the return. You no longer seek answers from someone who already gave you one through their actions. You simply move forward, and in doing so, you become the man who no longer needs to ask why. Human relationships are rarely as simple as we wish them to be. They are not built purely on love, loyalty, or even mutual respect. They are deeply embedded in an unspoken psychological game of validation and power. This is not to say that every interaction between two people is manipulative or transactional, but rather that human nature by design compels us to seek affirmation of our worth through others. And nowhere is this dynamic more evident than in the way people navigate breakups and emotional connections. At the core of human nature is the desire to be seen, acknowledged, and valued. From an evolutionary perspective, social validation was crucial to survival. If you were accepted by the group you lived, if you were cast out, you faced the brutal reality of isolation, which in ancestral times often meant death. Even in today's modern world, where survival no longer depends on tribal belonging, the need for social affirmation remains deeply ingrained in our psychology. We seek reassurance that we are important, that we matter, that our presence leaves an imprint on others. This is where power dynamics come into play in any relationship. Ship romantic, why people seek power in relationships. Or otherwise, there exists an invisible struggle for influence. Who cares more? Who holds the upper hand? Who is willing to walk away? And who is left waiting? The answers to these questions dictate the entire emotional experience of the relationship. When someone walks away, particularly after inflicting pain, they are often testing the strength of their own influence. The ability to leave and still hold power over the other person is in many ways the ultimate validation. This is why people often return after causing hurt, not because they have had a sudden revelation about their mistakes, but because they are subconsciously seeking confirmation that they still matter. They want to know, am I still in your mind? Do I still have access to your emotions? Can I still affect you the way I once did? If the answer is yes, they have reinforced their sense of significance. Influence is fading. This is not a deliberate act of cruelty or manipulation. It is an instinctive response to the uncertainty of human connection. We all fear irrelevance. We all want to believe that we left an impact, that we are not so easily forgotten. This is why people reappear after months, even years, not with a grand gesture of reconciliation, but with something as simple as a message, a check-in, or a casual remark. It is not about rekindling the relationship, it is about confirming that they still exist in your world. If you do not understand this psychological mechanism, you may mistake it for something deeper. You may believe that their return is fueled by remorse, love, or an awakening of emotions. In reality, it is often nothing more than a reflexive attempt to secure their own self-worth. The moment you validate their return with attention, emotion, or longing, you reinforce the very power they sought to confirm. You allow yourself to be pulled back into a cycle where you are not in control. Understanding this truth does not mean becoming bitter or resentful. It means recognizing the nature of human interactions for what they are. It means detaching yourself from the need for external validation and focusing on your own self-worth. The person who holds the most power in any dynamic is not the one who chases, but the one who remains unfazed, the one who does not need validation because he has already found it within himself. When you grasp this, you no longer feel confused when someone re-enters your life after leaving you in pain. You no longer interpret their return as a reflection of your worth. Instead, you see it for what it truly is, a moment of insecurity on their part, a subconscious test of influence. And when you recognize that you gain something far more valuable than their attention, you gain the power to decide whether their presence still holds any significance in your life at all. Emotional attachment is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. It binds people together in ways that logic, emotional attachment, the invisible bond, cannot fully explain, often making them act against their own self-interest. When someone has been emotionally invested in another person, that attachment does not simply disappear when the relationship ends. It lingers, influencing thoughts, emotions, and behaviors long after physical separation has occurred. This is why people struggle to let go, why they find themselves revisiting old memories, and why they sometimes return to relationships they once walked away from. At the heart of emotional attachment is the human need for connection. From the moment we are born, we seek comfort, security, and validation from others in childhood. This attachment is directed toward caregivers who provide the emotional foundation for our sense of self. As we grow, that same need for attachment extends into friendships and romantic relationships. When we invest in another person, when we share experiences, emotions, and vulnerabilities, our sense of identity becomes intertwined with theirs. This is why breakups feel so painful. It is not just the loss of a person, it is the loss of a part of ourselves. But there is an even deeper layer to this. The fear of true loss. When someone leaves a relationship, they may convince themselves that they are in control of the situation. In conclusion, when a woman comes back after hurting you, it's important to assess the situation with a clear mind. While her return may signal a desire for reconciliation or personal growth, it's crucial to consider whether both parties are ready to move forward in a healthier, more constructive way. The decision to welcome her back into your life should be based on mutual respect, understanding, and the willingness to address the past. Hurt, ultimately, whether or not to give the relationship another chance, is a personal choice, one that requires reflection on your own emotional needs and boundaries.